This is the English service of Radio Algeria International. It's time for the news.
In today's top story, Serbia's Prime Minister Duro Matsut has ended a two-day working visit during which he was received by President Abdelmajid Tebboune, a visit that culminated in the signing of a number of agreements covering various sectors. Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf has said that actions aimed at raising the level of cooperation between Algeria and Belgium identified. The Arab League is holding an emergency meeting to address Israel's recently passed death penalty law targeting Palestinian prisoners, a move that was internationally condemned, including by the European Union. Hello and welcome to Radio Algeria International. I'm Jamal Samani. The President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, has received the President of the National Council of Regions and Districts of Tunisia, Imad Darbeli, along with the delegation accompanying him on a visit focused on strengthening bilateral relations between the two countries. At the end of the meeting, the Tunisian official emphasized the importance of reinforcing cooperation and consolidating the privileged ties that unite Algeria and Tunisia, or serving the interests of both countries and their two brotherly peoples.
سعدت وتشرفت بمقابلة السيد.
I felt very pleased and honored to meet with the President of the People's Democratic Republic of Algeria, Abdelmajid Tebboune. It was a truly fascinating meeting during which I conveyed the greetings of the President of the Republic, Qais Said. We discussed the distinguished ties and relations that unite Algeria and Tunisia, and it was also an opportunity to reflect on the many shared struggles that brought Algeria and Tunisia together. We also explored ways to further strengthen cooperation and relations for the benefit of our two brotherly peoples and countries.
شعبينا وبلدينا الشقيقين.
In this regard, the Council of the Nation and the National Council of Regions and Districts of Tunisia signed in Algiers a protocol of parliamentary cooperation and announced the creation of a parliamentary cooperation forum in a new phase aimed at strengthening coordination between the two institutions. The agreement signed by Azouz Nasri and Imad Darbeli provides several coordination mechanisms in the legislative, diplomatic and administrative fields with the objective of consolidating an institutional partnership reflecting the depth of historical relations between Algeria and Tunisia. Both officials highlighted that this new cooperation framework will expand collaboration among the parliamentarians and reinforce parliamentary diplomacy as a tool serving development, stability and the common interests of the two peoples. On the second day of the visit by the President of the National Council of Regions of Districts of Tunisia, Imad Darbeli, to our country, he was received today at the Government Palace by the Algerian Minister of Interior, Said Sayoud. According to a ministry statement, the meeting allowed the examination of ways to strengthen bilateral cooperation relations between Algeria and Tunisia. The Prime Minister of the Republic of Serbia, Duro Matsut, left Algiers today, Wednesday, following a two-day working visit during which he was received by the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune. The visit culminated in the signing of a number of agreements covering various sectors. More in this report by Said Masoud.
In a press statement following the meeting granted to him by the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, at the presidency, Mr. Meket said he had discussed with the President the decades-long relations between the two countries, noting that Algeria and Serbia have been closely linked since Algeria's independence.
I believe that will soon be flourished, but we strongly believe that Serbia is also respecting its own independence in every meaning. So with new relations it will be increasing in the next period.
He said his visit aimed to reaffirm the long-standing friendship and open new prospects for bilateral cooperation, recalling agreements on taxation, tourism and other areas, and highlighting opportunities in sectors such as telecommunications, military, education, research, health, trade, agriculture and energy, while expressing confidence in pursuing joint projects. In this regard, high-level meetings were held in Algiers between Algerian and Serbian officials involving the Ministry of Industry, the Ministry of Foreign Trade and Export Promotion, and the Ministry of Hydrocarbons and Mines. The Minister of Industry, Mr. Yahya Bashir, met Serbian Minister Mr. Nenad Popovic to discuss strengthening industrial partnership in priority sectors including steel construction materials, cement, clinker, marble, agricultural machinery, agri-food, textile, leather, technology, digitization, AI and Algeria's raw materials, emphasizing historic friendly relations and joint projects to boost cooperation. The Minister of Foreign Trade and Export Promotion, Mr. Kemal Rzig, was received by Serbian Prime Minister Mr. Duru Makat to explore enhancing trade, promoting partnerships between Algerian and Serbian economic operators, and establishing an Algerian-Serbian Business Council to facilitate contacts and investment. The Minister of State in charge of hydrocarbons and mines, Mr. Mohammed Arqab, met Serbian Minister Mr. Nenad Popovic with Secretary of State for Mines, Mr. Karima Bakir Tefer, to discuss cooperation in hydrocarbons, mines, industrial investment, oil, gas, processing, digitization, engineering, equipment manufacturing, natural gas marketing, mining, fertilizers, and technology transfer, reaffirming commitment to strengthen the partnership.
The State Minister in charge of Foreign Affairs, National Community, Abroad and African Affairs, Mr. Ahmed Attaf, has said that actions aimed at raising the level of cooperation between Algeria and Belgium were identified. Mas'ud Sharfi again.
Entrusted by the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, Mr. Attaf, on an official visit to Belgium, indicated that his talks with the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs of Belgium, Mr. Maxime Privet, identified several axes of action to raise cooperation to the level of common ambitions, adding that 2 agreements were signed: abolition visas for diplomatic and service passport holders and framing mobility cooperation.
We signed today 2 new agreements. The first concerns the abolition of visas for holders of diplomatic and service passports, and the second aims to frame cooperation in the area of mobility of persons between our 2 countries. Our talks also made it possible to identify several axes of action in order to raise our cooperation to the level of our common ambitions.
He said the 2 sides aim to boost trade currently around $1.5 billion, facilitate Algerian products access to Belgian and European markets, reactivate cooperation mechanisms, and modernize the legal framework, welcoming the visit as timely to strengthen political, sectoral, and economic ties between Algeria and Belgium. Mr. Attaf commended the visit as following shortly after Mr. Privet's trip and the 5th political consultations, noting progress in sectoral cooperation across transport, health, justice, environment, and migration, and highlighted renewed Belgian business interest marked by the opening of Belgian Economic Office in Algiers last October. He urged Belgian investors to expand in Algeria, discussed regional and international issues including the Middle East and the Palestinian question, addressed the Algeria-EU partnership, and stressed turning this momentum into concrete steps to strengthen the Algerian-Belgian partnership. Earlier, State Minister, who was received in Brussels by Belgian Prime Minister Mr. Bart de Wever, conveyed President Tebboune's greetings and expressed his commitment to continue joint efforts to strengthen the partnership between the 2 countries. The Belgian Prime Minister asked the State Minister to convey his greetings to the President of the Republic and highlighted the recent achievement in economic partnership and the prospects for raising bilateral cooperation in line with the country's potential and long-standing ties of trust and mutual respect.
Interior Minister Mr. Said Sayed has confirmed that Algeria would continue its vigorous efforts to strengthen joint Arab action and its commitment to contributing to various initiatives that support security and stability during his participation in the 43rd session of the Council of Arab Interior Ministers. Via video conference, Mr. Sayoud highlighted Algiers' commitment to continuing its vigorous effort to strengthen joint Arab action, which has become indispensable in the current circumstances, alongside its commitment to contributing positively to various Arab and international initiatives supporting security and stability, thereby ensuring the sustainable development and security of the Arab region. He noted that Algeria, in accordance with its long-standing principles, emphasizes the importance of respecting the sovereignty of states and non-interference in their internal affairs, and of adopting dialogue as a means of resolving disputes, thereby helping to shield our region from the repercussions of conflicts and enhancing the prospects of achieving security and stability for peoples of the region. The Minister of State in charge of hydrocarbons and mines, Mr. Mohamed Al-Qab, has received in Algiers the chairman of the board of directors of the Qatari group Power International Holding, Mr. Mu'taz Al-Khayyat, with whom he examined cooperation, partnership and investment opportunities in the hydrocarbon sector. In the same connection, and still in Algiers, Mr. Al-Qab discussed with the Secretary at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in charge of cooperation with southern counties of India, Ms. Nina Malhotra, ways to strengthen bilateral cooperation in hydrocarbons, mines and seawater desalination. Now, the Arab League is holding Thursday an emergency meeting to address Israel's recently passed death penalty law targeting Palestinian prisoners, a move that was internationally condemned, including by the European Union. The details with Mas'ud Sharfi.
Palestine's permanent representative to the Arab League, Ambassador Mohammed Al-Aklouk, announced that an extraordinary session of the League's Council at the level of permanent representatives will be held on Thursday, tomorrow, at the request of Palestine and with the support of member states. In a statement, Wafa Al-Aklouk said that the unanimously backed meeting will discuss measures to confront the occupation crimes and violations in occupied Jerusalem and its Islamic and Christian holy sites, in addition to the approval by the Knesset of a discriminatory and invalid law permitting the execution of Palestinian prisoners. Al-Aklouk, who warned of the serious consequences of the Israeli Knesset's adoption of a discriminatory law authorizing the execution of Palestinian prisoners, describing it as a fully constituted war crime and a blatant violation of international humanitarian law and all relevant international conventions protecting prisoners and human rights. He called for immediate action to halt the law, prevent its implementation, hold Israel accountable for its continuous violations, and impose sanctions for its clear breach of international law. He added that the meeting was requested in light of the ongoing Zionist aggression against the Palestinian people, systematic violations in occupied Jerusalem, restrictions on freedom of worship, continued closure of Al-Aqsa Mosque for more than 30 days. Following the decision, Palestinians took to the streets of the city of Ramallah in protest. Participants chanted slogans condemning the law and called on the international community to intervene to stop the occupation's crimes against prisoners. Meanwhile, the European Union has expressed strong concern following the approval of the death penalty bill by the Israeli occupying parliament. In a statement issued by the High Representative of the European Union for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy on behalf of the EU, the bloc reaffirmed its principled opposition to the death penalty in all cases and under all circumstances. According to the statement, the approval of the death penalty bill marks a serious regression, expressing deep concern about the bill's de facto discriminatory charter. The EU urged the occupier to uphold its previous position and comply with its obligations under international law. The bloc emphasized that the death penalty constitutes a violation of the rights to life and cannot be carried out without breaching the absolute prohibition against torture and other forms of ill treatment. It also stressed that capital punishment has no proven deterrent effect and makes any judicial errors irreversible. For its part, Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez had condemned the approval of the law. Sanchez said on his official platform on X that the Spanish government condemns the death penalty against Palestinians recently approved by the Israeli Knesset, stressing that this is a systematic measure that would not be applied to Israelis who committed the same offenses. Sanchez urged the international community to not remain silent, saying that it is a step closer to apartheid.
Here in Algeria, in a reaction, the ambassador of the State of Palestine to Algiers, Faiz Abu Aida, has strongly condemned Israel, the occupying power, for enacting a discriminatory law authorizing the imposition of the death penalty on Palestinian prisoners, calling it a terrorist and criminal law.
First, we call on the international community to condemn the adoption of the penal code and to demand Israel's far-right government repeal this terrorist, criminal and racist law. We also call for the activation of universal jurisdiction and for those responsible for the law in Israel to be prosecuted. They must be brought to trial and subjected to universal jurisdiction. We further condemn that the Knesset and the Israeli courts be regarded as institutions that legislate racist policies and that steps taken to isolate them internationally, including their expulsion from international parliamentary bodies and unions.
That was the ambassador of the State of Palestine to Algiers, Mr. Faiz Abu Aida. Now, the UN Security Council has discussed the dangerous deterioration of the situation in Lebanon due to the Zionist military escalation. In a statement to the Security Council, Khaled Khayari, the UN Assistant Secretary General for the Middle East and Europe, said that the situation in Lebanon continues to deteriorate sharply in the context of the wider escalation in the region.
Wider escalation across the Middle East, the situation in Lebanon continues to deteriorate drastically. Since the last emergency meeting of this Council on Lebanon on 11 of March and the close consultation held on 17 of March, Hezbollah and Israel have both expanded the scale and scope of their military operations, with heavy exchanges of fire across the Blue Line, strikes across Lebanon, and intensified clashes amidst an increased deployment of Israeli defense forces deeper inside Lebanon. This is taking a devastating toll on civilians and civilian infrastructure, particularly in Lebanon. As of 30 March, the Lebanese authorities report that over 1,240 people have been killed and 3,680 wounded. Over 1.1 million people have been displaced.
He emphasized that the United Nations continues to call for the use of diplomatic channels whilst renewing its commitment to the full implementation of the UN Resolution number 1701. For his part, Jean-Pierre Lacroix, the UN Under-Secretary General for Peacekeeping Operations, warned in his speech that civilians are paying a heavy price as a result of the continuing hostilities, whilst the United Nations interim force in Lebanon has suffered casualties.
As reported earlier, the Israel Defense Forces have issued displacement orders for the entire UNIFIL area of operations and can continue to conduct intensified daily strikes, also in violation of Resolution 1701. Politicians in Israel now openly speak of the intention of an extended so-called security or buffer zone with the destruction of villages along the Blue Line and several bridges across the Litani River. In the last week only, thousands of trajectories were observed in both directions, as well as attacks by fighter aircraft and unmanned aerial vehicles. The Israel Defense Forces are advancing deeper into Lebanon, and clashes have been observed, including in very close proximity to UNIFIL headquarters in Nakura, which has been the subject of multiple impacts. Faced with immense pressure, including intensified exchanges of fire, direct attacks, obstructions of movement and resupply, UNIFIL continuously reassesses the force's posture to mitigate risks, strengthening force protection, reducing footprint, and adjusting operational activities.
The European Union has warned of a deepening energy crisis, urging member states to reduce oil consumption in response to the ongoing impact of the war in the Middle East. Following a meeting with EU energy ministers, EU Energy Commissioner Dan Johansson said that the situation could deteriorate further. He stressed that even if peace were restored soon in the Middle East, return to normal would be unlikely due to damage to energy infrastructure in the region. Since the outbreak of the war a month ago, gas pipelines have risen by 70% in Europe and oil prices by about 60%, increasing the EU's energy bill by approximately 14 billion euros. You're still listening to Radio Algeria International. Stay tuned.